Welcome into Love of the Star as we are live here at Cowboys training camp in Oxnard, California. Zach Wolchuk alongside Eric Chiafalo. We will have the Super Bowl winning scout Brian Broaddus joining us just momentarily. He's, of course, sourcing his balls off right now. He's on the phone, probably figuring out more information on this Cowboys new corner that they did go ahead and sign today. We have just had a ton of injury news, Eric. I mean, the Cowboys dodging a big-time bullet yesterday in what was just a crazy hour-long sequence where we thought, oh no, is Tyler Guyton now going to be out for the season? Does he have a torn ACL? That doesn't end up being the case. Thank goodness. We still might have the possibility of Tyler Guyton being able to play week 1 in the season opener against the Eagles, as the MRI showing that the ACL still intact for Tyler Guyton. Instead, it's just he suffered a bone fracture. So that's going to sideline him at least 1 to 2 months. But when we found that out, towards the end of the G-Bag Nation yesterday, when you took a video of my reaction, it was just such a bummer because I thought Tyler Guyton, in getting out here for day 2 of the padded practice, had himself a hell of a day. I thought he was really battling Sam Williams well. I thought he countered Donovan Ezeraku, who's been an absolute star out here at camp. But you can just see with our own eyes, just in one practice, the growth from Tyler Guyton from a year ago out here on the practice fields to now. I mean, just with his pass sets, with his ability now to be the aggressor as an offensive lineman. Dodging a huge bullet there as we got the Super Bowl winning scout Brian Broaddus joining us now. But yeah, Eric, I'll go to you first here. But that was just a massive sigh of relief to find out, Tyler, this isn't a season ender.
Yeah, that was huge. We got the Rappaport initial report, and it was that they were fearing the ACL, waiting for the MRI. And credit and kudos to our very own Brian Broaddus, who in real time was like, all right, let me try and iron this thing out here. What the heck is going on? He's sourcing his tail off, and next thing you know, he's like, hold your horses. Nothing confirmed. There.
Oh, Eric muted himself there. He does have a tendency to do this on accident from time to time. But yes,
bro.
It's all good, brother. It's all good. I saw it. I saw the red light pop on.
Just a big credit to Broaddus. That's really all this is.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to say this, that I really do believe in trying to kind of get to the bottom of things. And I've been on the other end of this where, let's wait for the MRIs and things like that. I think that was something that that I know just, and I was dealing with Vach Lombardi, and Vach said that he saw Guyton walking back to his room, and he, just a slight limp and all that, carrying a backpack and everything. It, wasn't like he was getting carted or on crutches or had a brace or anything like that. And yeah, you could probably walk around with the ACL the way it is and stuff, but Vach really kind of like said, hey, I saw him walking, and I said, well, let's figure this out if this is really the case. And as we kind of work through some things, my sources were telling me, hey, it's we don't know yet. And then a little bit later, a couple hours later, they got the MRI back, and it was the bone problem, and and so 4 to 6 weeks, and there's kind of thought that maybe he might be ready for the first game. So we'll see how it all plays out. But it started off as a very, very kind of somber situation with losing a guy who's had a really good camp so far.
Yeah, and I thought yesterday, as I started, was a really strong day. First day that Eric and I have been out here and got to see him. But I know you and Vach has really had a great eye on the offensive lineman his entire time out here at camp, and he flew back to the Dallas area today. But it really was. It's been a strong camp, and we know from the offseason, Tyler Guyton's been putting in the work, and and this is a guy that we've said on our show on the G-Bag Nation, and I think Brian, you and I getting to do the draft show. And that's been an absolute blessing and a dream come true getting to do that with you. But I think that maybe we failed a little bit. I'll say this from my standpoint, that maybe we put the fans having an unfair expectation on what Tyler Guyton could be based on the plug and play aspect from a lot of other offensive linemen that the Cowboys have drafted and the instant success. And this was not one of those players that had quite the same resume in terms of amount of games played, being a lot more raw, being a lot more of a developmental type of player. So it shouldn't have really been a shock last year that he needed to grow, and he went through some growing pains. But I'm excited about the future. Now the question will be, and we'll get to see, the Cowboys off today as we're recording on a Tuesday, but who's the first guy that gets to take over those reps? Is that going to be Awesome Richards? Is that going to be Nate Thomas, who I think is actually looked pretty good yesterday? There was a time he was a little slow out of his stance against Donovan Ezra, who's just been giving everybody fits, but I was actually pretty impressed with some of the reps that I saw from Nate Thomas. Could it be Hakeem Adeniji, who they brought in, that's been obviously with Cincinnati and a couple of other teams, Cleveland being one? He's played more right tackle. Do they move him to the left? It's going to be interesting. I know a lot of fans instantly were saying, hey, Tyler Smith, you got to move him. But I love the point you were making and your thoughts on this, Brian, about that core three in the middle. Keep that intact.
Yeah, the core three is going to be, from what I've seen through 6 practices of running the football, how well this team runs the football. Scheme is going to be important, but also it's going to be the 3 inside guys. The tackles are going to have to be able to reach. They're going to have to be able to cut off. They're going to have to be able to work with the guards at times, but they're going to have to be able to maybe a lot of single blocking going on there. But it's going to be about the inside 3. I am not moving Tyler Smith. I got to keep him at the left guard spot. He's working well with BB. Booker as a big, powerful guy as well. Where Dallas has had some success running the ball at these practices is they've been able to kind of control the inside 3. And so with that being said, that's how I think they're going to go about it. I don't see them moving the guy. They're going to figure out the tackle spot. They've been playing left and right. They really haven't been flip-flopping. But as you mentioned, Adeniji has done a nice job. When Steele was out, there was not this huge drop-off. It wasn't like what we've seen in the past with some of the guys in the past, these backup offensive linemen that have come in and they just have not got the job done. And when always Chaz Green comes to my mind, but that was just a bad game for Chaz Green. But that type of level play where all of a sudden you see a complete drop off there, and that really hasn't been the case at all.
Yeah, and Eric, I know you saw Tyler Booker just driving Mozzie Smith into the ground yesterday, but the power, and really, object one is the priority: win your division. And you look at the strength within the NFC East, it is mainly the interior pass rushers, specifically Jalen Carter, of course, Jordan Davis with the Eagles, Dexter Lawrence with the Giants. You've always had to deal with guys like Deron Payne in Washington. Now the Giants might have a pretty lethal pass rush on the edge as well, but can you find a way to neutralize those studs in the middle? And I don't think, Eric, the Cowboys have any interest in moving Tyler Smith.
No, I don't think they do either, and I don't think Tyler Smith has much interest in moving either. Not that he wouldn't if they were really trying to force that, but I think everybody's on the same page that they want to keep those 3 interior beasts with Booker and BB and Smith all together right there. And one of the things when you look at all the different, with the way they want to go under center and do the play action stuff, and even just like the quick passing game, like having that interior pocket being as steady of a force as possible, I think is huge. And that was one of the big standouts to me yesterday, just through one padded practice that we got to really watch. Of course, you love seeing Dak go deep to Pickens and finally getting that thing unlocked a little bit. But a lot of the play action stuff, the boots and waggles that Broadus always loves, but the quick passing game and with their bunch sets and a lot of the condensed stuff where they're quick, boom, getting it out to Turpin, and it's one air yard basically of a pass, and it goes for 10 because Turpin is that kind of guy, and you're just having things from a schematic standpoint and the blocking aspect of the wide receivers all coming into play. So I think it makes a ton of sense. I'm bummed that we're not going to just get to see the continual growth here throughout camp of Tyler Guyton, but I am confident that the other 4 are going to be able to get it done at a high level. And you can help out a tackle. You got one guy you need to help out. You can do things to do to keep him healthy a little bit.
Now, a couple other unfortunate injury news. If you've missed it, and this happened over the weekend as well, Paris Campbell, who I think, some Cowboy fans might be like, oh, Paris Campbell's on the team. He reportedly has an MCL sprain. That is a bummer there. And, Brian, was he a guy that was flashing at all last week, the first week of practice to you?
Not really. Had a deep ball opportunity, and it was too far. And so it was going to be an uphill battle for him. He's a veteran player, but if you look at, if right now it looks like an uphill battle for Tolbert, with what's going on with Mingo and others. I mean, they're finally Flournoy has shown up a little bit here. Cropper's had some opportunities. These guys are going to get a lot more work when this thing gets to the preseason games and stuff like that. But yeah, it's good to see Flournoy step up with Campbell. That it was really kind of fleeting in between some of the plays and some of the opportunities that he got in these practices.
Ankle injury for Brevin Spanford, who has emerged as tight end 2, taken over for Scooney. And that's also one that's a setback, having an absolutely outstanding camp, but fortunately will probably be back for the regular season when games count. But you hate that for Brevin Spanford, especially with Clayton Adams. I mean, you knew this in Arizona. He likes to use 12, maybe even 13 personnel where he's got multiple tight ends on the field. But Brevin Spanford, I think, is going to have a huge role within this offense. And now I think Hunter Lipke is a guy that at least yesterday was getting a lot of run and a lot of reps in practice, Brian.
Yeah, he absolutely was. And I think to me that, the thing with Spanford that's been really encouraging, so far with him is that he looks really comfortable catching the football. And you've seen him, some of the stuff along the sidelines, down the middle of the field, the adjusting touchdown catch he had with Joe Milton throwing the ball over the top and him going up and really high pointing the football. Hand placement much better, footwork much better. Everything about him it's like his off season was spent, trying to get better and become more comfortable catching the football, and it's shown up in these practices that he's got to participate in.
Kalen Carson, hyperextended knee. He's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks as the Cowboys' cornerback room gets even thinner. Now, the Cowboys did add Christian Matthew. They worked out several corners yesterday. Matthew, 7th-round pick in 2022 by the Cardinals. He was already 25 years old when he was drafted, so he was one of the older players. He's 6'2", reportedly had a 41.5-inch vert, 4.5 40-yard dash, made the Cardinals roster as a rookie, played 14 games, 3 starts, and then he did play with Matt Eberflus in Chicago in the following season. He had 2 appearances for the Bears, mainly played just on special teams there, so also spent some time with the Ravens. But you got to think this is more of a camp body right now. Now, one of the guys that, fellas, and Eric, I think, I talked with you about this yesterday after practice. Zion Childress really stood out to me yesterday, made some plays. And Matt Eberflus is doing some stuff where he is showing a lot more blitzes, is kind of taking over that double A gap. We're kind of mugging the middle there from Zim, but he also had the the slot corner blitz from Childress. But I thought Childress did a good job in coverage, broke up a couple of passes. Maybe he's a guy now that can step up in that role. But, Eric, I feel like I'm going to make the bold prediction. We're going to get a Stephon Gilmore signing here within the next week.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I thought this would have been the time for it when you lose a Carson like that, and you're so thin back there. You would feel like you want to get somebody who can step in and actually be a guy that can play football on Sundays, unlike this Christian Matthew fellow who's just really taking a flyer and like you said, maybe more of a camp body. So I could totally see it. I mean, there's a handful of guys out there. You have Rasul Douglas, who's still out there at the cornerback spot. You have the Asante Samuel Juniors of the world, but I think Stephon Gilmore would make a ton of sense. I wonder what type of deal he's probably got a line in the sand of like, I've made plenty of money. I don't have to play unless I'm making X amount of dollars. And we know how frugal the Cowboys can be on this front. So I think that would be the main thing that would hold it up is just, hey, he wants $5-6 million and they're not even trying to touch it.
What do you think there, Brian? Am I foolish? Is this a foolish, bold prediction?
No, I mean, I think they're going to start really looking at some of these corners. They've been encouraged though by, you mentioned, with the guys that have played. I mean, I even seen Booth play a little bit. Just if I could circle back on Carson, that one is that's a real shame. And, he was an outstanding player coming out of Wake Forest. I know we talked about him a bunch on the draft show. We were very encouraged by him. He has just been in a situation where every time he takes, was it the old saying, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, he just cannot stay healthy. And when they need him to be healthy, he hasn't, injuries are a part of it. But here, back-to-back training camps now where all of a sudden he has been a guy that they used as the second corner. and now he's going to be gone for 4 to 6 weeks with this knee injury. And then, how far behind is he going to fall? I mean, they've been really fortunate that some of the young guys that we really didn't even think were going to show up have actually shown up, and it's not playing against down the line receivers. They've done a good job against the Pickens and the Lambs and people like that. So is it something you feel really great about? I feel good about what Hall's been able to, and hasn't practiced at all. I mean, he's been gone because of the birth of his child. So some guys have had to step up, but man, it's a very, very thin group right now. So I think that maybe that the where we're thinking right now, as far as adding guys and stuff, that they might be getting to that point where they're going to start running some guys through here and check it out for sure, because they're getting a little thin at the position.
Last thing I wanted to hit before we can talk about practice, some of the contract stuff, then we'll move into our Dean Julia mailbag to close it out, and appreciate everybody who gave us some awesome feedback, some negative, but mostly awesome feedback on our surveys that we did with the Love of the Star. And you can always go check out the merch as well that we've got, as Eric's wearing that Love of the Star shirt. But Bobby brought this up, Bobby Belt, former host of Love of the Star on our morning show with Sean and RJ, that for the first 6 practices the last 3 years under Mike McCarthy, Cowboys had a total of 9 injuries. They've had 9 injuries in the first 6 practices this season alone. Now, my initial reaction, and I wonder, Brian, being a lifer and seeing plenty of different coaches and how they handle training camp, it's a shame. Injuries happen in football. I have not noticed anything other than, specifically the 11-on-11 and wanting a more physical practice. Even some of the clips we were able to see before we got out here, it did seem like, even with shells on, the team was practicing physical. But I think one thing that we've talked about this team is soft front runners. They need to build more of a toughness and mental mentality. And to me, injuries are a part of the game, and they suck, and you don't want it to happen. But I'm not going to overreact to a slew of injuries that have happened over the first 6 practices here in Oxnard. It's a massive bummer, but I don't know that it's necessarily anything Brian Schottenheimer has done that has caused that. I don't know if you have a differing opinion on that, Brian.
No, I absolutely appreciate the way he's practiced, and I think some of the injuries have been just absolute bad luck, and when you start to talk about your running plays and a guy loses his balance, he goes into the back of the legs of another guy. That happens in practice. And so you have to be able to kind of work through those things. But I think the way that the team is practicing, I think it's shown some really, I was curious, like, okay, how are they going to work on the running game when they don't practice 9-on-7? And 9-on-7 has been a staple of football for a long time. And all of a sudden, this guy comes out and he runs the first 10 plays. He runs the ball 9 times in an 11-on-11 period. He's trying his best to get this team physically ready to have to play at a higher level when it comes to that physicality. So injuries are a part of it. I mean, people are dealing with these. I think they've caught a couple of breaks. I think they caught a break on Span Ford. That could have been a really ugly thing. And they caught a break on Tyler Guyton. So, I think the football gods are kind of saying, okay, keep practicing. And we'll see how it ends up at the end of the day. But they've been very fortunate with a couple of injuries that initially looked very, very difficult. That might be season enders for sure.
You are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Zach Wolchuk, Eric Chiafalo, and the Super Bowl winning scout Brian Broaddus. As training camp is here, we are live in Oxnard. Cowboys off today as we record on a Tuesday. They just had their second padded practice yesterday. But I did want to knock out the contract stuff as we go ahead and just put, dot the I, cross the T's on every Cowboys type of news here. But Eric, your initial reaction, Jake Ferguson, we're at the airport. We're getting ready to fly out. I did not have this on my bingo card that Fergie would be the first one to get extended, but Jake Ferguson getting his big 4-year extension to remain with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised as well. I'm happy for him. I am a Jake Ferguson believer, so it is a little bit weird, the timing of coming off a pretty poor year from a production standpoint, and then with the injuries that he suffered, and then he's going to go ahead and get paid. But I do think they envision him being a guy who's going to be highly productive in this new offense, especially being one of the biggest beneficiaries of having that Pickens-Lamb combo. And we know how much Dak has always loved the tight ends. He's always loved Ferguson in particular. They have a really nice connection there. So I think I think it makes sense, unless he is going to be perpetually injured guy now, where he's going to have concussions all the time and he's dealing with like knees and stuff like he did last year. I believe in Jake Ferguson as being a good player. And one of the things I love most about him is just sort of the tenacity and the aggression that he plays with. He plays with a fire. You know, he's one of the few guys that we've looked at over these last few years with the Cowboys. You're like, dude, this dude's an absolute dog. He is bringing the physicality to an offense, and they want. I mean, Schottenheimer, that's what he wants the personality of this team to be. So I think Ferguson is one of those guys that absolutely exudes everything that you want in your offense and in your team. So from a personality and stuff standpoint, I think it's on point. And again, I do think he's going to be extremely productive. It is just a little weird. I understand the criticism of, man, it was a bad year. Don't you want him to sort of earn it a little bit more?
Sure.
I get that. But if you think he's going to explode and have a big year, then, hey, we got ahead of it, and we're going to look back on this deal and feel really, really good about it. I think the thing that sucks about it a little bit is just the reminder of, man, if you liked Ferguson this much, then why did you ever even draft Schoonmaker? You know, and that's sort of a different conversation. But you pay Ferguson now. You knew how good Jake Ferguson was a couple of years ago. It wasn't like he's coming off a big season right now. So that's the letdown right there. And yes, if you would have hit on Scooney and you had Ferguson, it's like, hey, we have two stud tight ends, great. But that's one of those things that I started thinking about upon the deal. But otherwise, Broadus, I'm fine with it. I like Jake Ferguson quite a bit.
Yeah, this was one that if you had to stack or power rank, wherever you want to say that, which contract was likely going to get done first and which one was going to get last, I don't think I had Jake Ferguson in the pole position on that one. I kind of felt like that maybe that they were going to kind of let things play out and see what. But you got a guy that's very much wants to be here. He doesn't want to be the highest paid guy at the position. He's not trying to reset the market. This is right in the wheelhouse for Stephen Jones and the way he deals with it. You know, he's going to get the seventh best contract and with among the tight ends, and they're going to get their guy. He's a guy that loves being here. He loves the whole aspect of, you know, he believes in Cowboy Nation and all those things. He says all the right things. He works hard. Injuries last year robbed him of a good season. Other than that, I think his bounce back has been so far so good through the 6 practices I've been able to see. So, you know, good for him getting his money. Eventually, I think you're going to start to see some other guys. I mean, maybe Bland's going to get done. Maybe Tyler Smith's going to get done. We'll see how those contracts play out, but they're on a little bit of a good roll right now. If they could get one of these other ones done, maybe it'll help them. The difficult one so far, as we all know, has been the Micah one. But if the other guys are kind of going to come in maybe under market a little bit or right at market, that will be why they sign here or not. Did Wolchuk
Broadus, can you hear him?
I cannot hear him at all. He might have done something. It looks like his mic's on.
Good now. Yeah, I fixed it.
There you go.
I figured
He's
out technology, baby. Technology. But Tyler Smith's agent out here yesterday. Maybe that's a good indication that we might be getting something done. And then Deron Bland talking to reporters saying he's talking as well. So, I mean, that'd be awesome if they could get this thing done, because the Micah thing, my gosh, I mean, the comments from Jerry and Steven and then Micah back and forth, it's been fun. You know, they're kind of enjoying this and having fun with it. It's par for the course. They've done it with Zeke, with CD, with Dak. So we'll continue this, but you know, Brian, I know there's a possibility that the battery draining on the computer. So before you end up, unfortunately, I don't know what bug just floated down there. That was a weird situation. Before you possibly crap out on us here, I do want to pick your brain, like top 5 guys that have stood out to you through the first week and a half of practice.
Yeah. I think to me, there's been some guys at these practices, I think, that have really, really shown up. I think when you look at Donovan Ezeraku, I think he's one of those guys that is every day, it doesn't matter where it's been with, you know, who he's gone against, the good tackles, the backup tackles. It really has been a real treat to watch him, the way that he's been able to come off the football. I'd have to say that I really like what I've seen with Kevontae Turpin and what he's done. You know, they're using him in a lot of different ways. They're throwing him the ball in the flat. They're handing him the ball in the backfield. They're lining him up wide as a wide receiver. He's making plays down the field. I think he's done a really nice job with those opportunities that they've given him. I think that Miles Sanders has been really, really good when it comes to running the football. I was not very high on Miles Sanders, and I was thinking about, well, this guy's probably done. They need to move on from him. But my gosh, he's done a great job when they hand him the football. He's been decisive. He's been able to hit holes. He's been able to make cuts. He's playing with some explosiveness, and I think that's been super impressive with how he's been able to get himself acclimated to potentially being the starting running back here. I know what they really like Williams a lot, but man, I think Miles Sanders has shown with him and Blue, those are two really, really, really explosive players. I'd also like to talk about with Elam, Kyrie Elam, and the way that he's played. It was kind of like, okay, here's a guy that leaves Buffalo. The general manager wanted him. Coaches didn't want to coach him. He had a couple of bad games. I know people talk about that Kansas City game as a bad one, but here's a guy that's kind of stepped up and done a really, really nice job when it comes to when it comes to whether he's having to defend CD or he's had to defend Pickens or anybody that's gone across from him. He this last week he's had 2 interceptions in practice. He fooled Dak Prescott on 1 interception, and to the point where Dak had to ask him, like, okay, what were you doing? Did you make a mistake? Did I read this wrong? But he's done a really, really nice job when it comes to that kind of ability. Like, we were really, really worried about him, but he has shown that he is very, very capable of doing it. And there's a couple other defensive guys that I also want to make mention of. Peyton Turner. And I say Peyton Turner in a way, and people are saying, damn, Peyton Turner top 5. I'm just saying the guys that have really flashed in him and Perrion Winfrey, both on the defensive line, have done a really nice job. Winfrey's explosive, has been up the field, has avoided blocks, has got off blocks, has played with power against the good. I mean, whether it's Tyler Smith, whether it's Booker, Beebe, done a really, really nice job of being able to play off. And then, like I say, with Peyton Turner, Peyton Turner is like maybe an edge run defender. But man, they put him inside on some nickel stuff. He's been able to get a little bit of pass rush. He has played the run well, but I was surprised of how well he's been able to rush the passer in these practices. So those are just a few of the guys that really kind of caught my eye right off the jump.
Is there a chance, as I'm listening to you talk about this, and then the wide receivers? Because I did think, Flournoy had himself a good practice yesterday. I think he's also one of the guys that is a good blocking wide receiver. Mingo certainly has stepped up with Tolbert's challenges. And I knew you did defend Tolbert a little bit, that he had a better day 1 of practice yesterday. I thought that he really didn't show up at all. Yeah. I wonder, and the Cowboys don't want to move on from guys that they've drafted, but being in a final year, like if this comes down to fringe cuts, like is Tolbert possibly a guy that might be a surprise cut?
Well, I think he's either going to be 4 or 5 if Mingo takes over the role as 3. The Mingo and Tolbert are battling for the 3rd spot, and they're trying to do everything they can to make sure that Tolbert is part of this. But there's been some drops. There was some early practices where he did a really nice job of driving Carson off the ball, coming back. Where he is really good is driving and then coming back, drive and come back. That's where he's been really good. But there's been some crossing routes where he's had some problems. Ball hasn't always been right on target, but some adjusting catches he has to make. And then yesterday he had a crossing route where he had a drop as well. And if I could, I know we talked a lot, but I'm going to circle back real quick. I know that Span Ford was a guy that I know we talked about, but you can include him in the guys that I mentioned. I didn't want to forget him because I think he's doing a really nice job. But anyway, the thing with Tolbert is just, it's a little bit surprising that maybe you have a good day, a good couple of days, and then the next day you maybe have a couple of drops along the way, which you really can't afford if you're trying to battle for that 3rd spot.
All righty, let's get into our Dean Julia mailbag. Brian, I know you might end up popping out of here. We'll try and keep you around as long as possible. You are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for making Love of the Star a part of your day. The feedback that we got on a lot of the surveys, some of which they would like us to argue with you a little bit more, Brian. I'm not going to force the arguments. They might just come naturally throughout the season. And then, just a couple of things about there's no faking here about the 90s Cowboys knowledge. All right.
Yeah.
When I was a little 2-year-old baby, the only thing that could shut me up is that 1993 Sports Illustrated Super Bowl VHS that was playing on a loop. All right. I was born and bred into this baby. Born and bred. We can go back. We got YouTube. We got a lot of technology that can go ahead and keep you learning and go back and watch videos from the 70s. Okay. So, hey, bleeding the silver and blue. But all the positive stuff, I appreciate you. For those that hate us, go bleep yourselves. But I still love you as well. Let's get into the mailbag, Eric, shall we?
Let's do this thing. All right. Great question from Mike Crum here in the mailbag. What minimum touches would you want on average for Turpin and Blue on offense this year? Broadus, we can start with you. How many touches would you like to see a guy like Turpin get? And then maybe the same for Blue there as well.
Yeah, Turpin is probably going to be somewhere on offense. You want to make sure that you can hand him the ball maybe 2-3 times a game. Maybe you can find him 3 or 4 passes a game, depending on how things are going and how they're playing him. I think anywhere between 6, maybe 5 to 7 touches would be something that I would say. With the situation with Blue, depending on, I know the people at Texas don't think he's a 25 carry a game guy, but if all of a sudden you have maybe you have Sanders is getting 15 to 18. Maybe you find a way to get 12 to 15 with Blue. Both those guys are really, really explosive players, as we've mentioned a bunch. So maybe those numbers will elevate right now, but they're kind of in a rotating system. But I would make sure that whatever that number is, it needs to be high.
Yeah, I mean 10 and anywhere up to 10 touches a game for Turpin would be awesome. I mean, can you get him 5 catches, 5 runs, if he's running the football effectively? I mean, I'd say a minimum of 7, because he is an explosive player, but I've loved how they've moved him around yesterday. I thought he was certainly the star on the offensive side of the football. And I just never really, as Brian's going to end up dying here, but I just didn't profile Blue, and that's battery death, not actual physical death. I didn't profile Blue is a guy that was a 20-plus carry a game dude at Texas. I mean, he did his damage getting 15 carries roughly there, and he's never been a dude that's been a bell cow back. And I don't know that he has to be. I think he's got such home run hitting ability and pass catching ability that you get him 15 touches in a game, and he's going to be able to do damage with that. You go back to that playoff game against Clemson where he has 140-plus yards, 2 touchdowns. That was 14 carries, if I'm not mistaken. So, I think if you can find a way to get anywhere from 20 touches a game combined between both those dudes, 2 of probably your most explosive playmakers, you'd be in a really good position.
Yeah, that was kind of the number I was thinking about as well when you combine the two, somewhere in that 20 neighborhood. But especially for a guy like Turpin, he's going to be so valuable to this offense, and especially when you consider how defenses are going to be doubling CeeDee Lamb and they're going to be worried about Pickens over the top. The amount of space that's going to be created for Turpin to work underneath and even like behind the line of scrimmage, boom, quick pass and let him go steal yards. I just think that is going to be something that could be a little bit bread and butter-ish for this offense, and a guy who can take a 5-yard play and make it a 25-yard play with his speed. So yeah, I'm super excited about what Turpin has to offer, and we haven't really seen it yet through one practice here yesterday, unless you saw something that stood out to you with Blue, Wolchuk. But I know we had a really nice first week of camp before we got out here, and so that's going to be a guy that hopefully, especially as the season gets going, Miles Sanders is going to be your starting back, and hopefully he can, rock and roll throughout the season. But you could see him maybe starting to slow down a little bit at some point, and hopefully at that point, the lights are really starting to come on for a guy in Blue, and maybe have like a second half of the year like Bucky Irving had last year for the Buccaneers, where okay, first half of the season he's not really doing a ton, and then all of a sudden, boom, he explodes. And for a rookie, a lot of the stuff is the between the ears, knowing where to be and when to be there, and that's something that you would think as the season goes on, he'll get more and more comfortable and familiar, and they can start to trust him a little bit more. So I like the idea of Blue as the season gets going being more of a focal point. But Turpin for sure, man, I'm really excited about what he's got cooking. Our buddy Rocket in the mix here in the Dean Julia mailbag. Wolchuk wants to know about Eberflus and the defense and the defensive tackles and just being so light in the front seven. Is that something that concerns you? Everybody's getting upfield. You don't have the true one tech. Mozzie Smith has been an embarrassment from what I've seen here throughout, camp in the clips before we got here. And then yesterday, Tyler Smith burying him 10 yards down the field. We'll see about Jay Toya, but for the most part, the front seven is going to be pretty light.
Yeah, I think Solomon Thomas has had himself a good camp. I'm excited about him. I don't love that they had, Mozzie drop all that weight and they want him kind of as a tweener. They're probably not going to be playing with a true one tech. I think is what's going to go on here with the Flues. I loved what we saw yesterday in practice with, kind of a different and more of an adapting to other things that he saw work last year with Mike Zimmer and now kind of adding that into his arsenal as a defensive play caller for Eberflus. Like he wasn't a guy that we thought of as a very exotic blitzer. He was doing that yesterday in practice, whether it was, hey, we've got Maris Leofau creeping up. We got Sanborn. We got Kenneth Murray, whoever it might be at linebacker. And these guys are now just like right over the center. We're mugging that A-gap blitz that Zim's made so popular. I think, Perion Winfrey might end up being a guy that ends up getting some really good playing time and good snaps for you. He is a bigger body, super, super tall, long arms player from Oklahoma that, we were pretty excited about possibly as a 4th round pick. I think he's a guy that can come in and play for you and give you something, but they are, they're not a very big front. Can you slant the front a little bit? Can you find a way to use that speed and quickness to your advantage? But this is going to be, team run defense. And that's something Brian's talked about quite a lot. It's not going to be like, okay, we got Jonathan Hankins anchoring down here. This is going to be about, hey, let's flow and fly to the football, use our team speed to our advantage. And there are some other Cowboy teams, if you look back at the past, like there's 2000 squads, the number 1 ranked defense when the team was 5-11, they were undersized. Now, hey, the pushback could be, well, we got a guy in Leroy Glover who is absolutely a difference-making Pro Bowl defensive tackle. I understand that, but you've got a guy in Micah Parsons that I do believe is going to be playing that you can kind of move around and use as a chess piece. And I'm excited about what Flus has done. I know that was, a hire that I don't think you were super in love with, but he's a guy that takeaways, we've seen that. He's usually ranking top 10 in takeaways when he's the defensive coordinator of a team. I think that's going to carry over. But, am I worried about it? Yeah, I am. But I think that we just kind of have to adjust our way of thinking here. And is there any way schematically, what do they do well? What are these players' strengths? And I do think the speed and the quickness and some of the power with their hands is something that they can utilize despite the lack of size.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit boomer busty in, you're going to be probably able to create more TFLs, getting behind the line of scrimmage and things like that because guys are getting upfield, but it will also leave you a little bit vulnerable to just gashes in the run game. But you mentioned the turnover stuff, and that's something that I'm really hoping can carry over because that could be a total game changer for this defense that I have a ton of questions about. If they're going to be forcing turnovers, that'll mitigate a lot of sort of the issues that we think they have. Cowboys due diligence asking the question, what is the biggest boom or bust position group for the Cowboys? Boom or bust position group. I don't know how you take that. Corner, maybe corner could be in the mix there. If Elam and you get Bland going, that could actually be something that works out nicely for you, eventually getting Trayvon Diggs back as well. But if Elam ends up being the guy from Buffalo and Diggs takes a while to return, all of a sudden you're looking real busty, not in a good way, Chuck.
Yeah, I think corner, absolutely, especially with the injuries, and hopefully, they can get Ravel back. Maybe, when they get back to the start, Frisco, maybe that's when he's starting to do a little bit more every day, but, that would be huge if you can get him back. The other one is running back. I know that other people have said Miles Sanders is looking really good. I didn't see anybody yesterday in practice from the running back room that really looked anything special. Turpin certainly got some speed when they put him back there, but nobody stood out to me that I was thinking like, oh, hell yeah, that's a difference-making runner right there. So I think running back could be, and some of that might just be, hey, the offensive line is going to be able to put them in a position to succeed with that power in the middle. But running back could be very boomer bust for this team. It might end up being like, holy hell, they need to upgrade here yet again in the offseason. We might be talking about second, third round backs, but certainly maybe they can hit something with Sanders. Maybe Blue ends up being awesome for them, but I've got some doubts, more doubts than I think others do at running back right now.
Okay, because OGD Wade is asking, how are the backs looking? How many yards should we expect from our leading rusher? I guess right now we would all predict the leading rusher to be Miles Sanders, with our fingers crossed that Jaden Blue can burst onto the scene and be something pretty dang special. But as it looks right now, that's probably going to be Miles Sanders. And man, that's a pretty good question. Like, we're going to have to. I wonder what the over-under is for Miles Sanders right now for the season. I can't imagine it's more than like 500 yards.
Yeah, I mean, initially I kind of thought, like, can we get to 800? I mean, you should be a 1,000-yard runner if you're a starting running back in the NFL now with the 17-game season. Rico got there. Tony Pollard barely got there the year before. So, like, ideally you'd like that. But I do think they're going to have running back by committee. And Shotty's talked about it. Like, if one guy has the hot hand and emerges, like, maybe they do just go ahead and feed him. But I mean, I think if you could get to 800 yards this year for Miles Sanders, that's just a number that popped into my head, that maybe he can do that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be clutch if he could get there. And then you have Jaden Blue that's bringing in maybe Jaden Blue touches 500 yards or something. As long as, like, combined you're getting the over the 1,000 yards and looking at maybe 12 to 1,300 yards between Sanders and Blue, that would suffice for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, especially when you factor in some of the stuff that they're going to be doing with Turpin on the ground. And even CeeDee Lamb. I mean, you see CeeDee Lamb lining up in the backfield a little bit. And I don't know how much they really want to hand him the ball. I know we've seen a ton of, like, the end around handoffs over the last couple of years, but getting him in the mix, they're going to have to be creative with the way they go about that. But one of the things that I'm encouraged about when it comes to the run game is just the fact that I think the passing game is going to be a productive, and it's going to be a real threat to defenses, to where all of a sudden they're like, hey, we pick your poison a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and make sure that Pickens and Lamb aren't killing us down the field, and this passing game's not killing us down the field. And so hopefully you're seeing much more lighter boxes, to where, hey, you're able to rattle off a pretty respectful amount of, just from a yards per carry standpoint. And hopefully you can get some home run hits in there. But I think the passing game is going to be legit enough to where it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for the run game. And again, we are optimistic about the offensive line and Clayton Adams and Connor Riley. We've talked about it plenty. So hopefully they're healthy enough, get Guyton back as soon as possible. And if the offensive line is good enough and defenses are having to really lighten up the box because they're nervous about the Lamb, Pickens, Ferguson, Turpin kind of passing game combo, boom, all of a sudden you should be getting some really good looks in terms of running the ball.
I'm with you 100%. And look, if Jaden Blue can have an outstanding rookie season, it'd be over 1,000 yards all purpose for me, because that's a guy, we did see a lot of swing passes out of the backfield. Can he be an effective pass catcher? You marry that into what he's able to do on the ground. If I could get over 1,000 all purpose yards for Jaden Blue, that's a hell of a rookie campaign.
100%. We're getting a lot of, like, Stephon Gilmore questions about that. We obviously addressed that. Tyler Smith to tackle, we addressed that. Not looking like something that the Cowboys are really going to want to do. That would be probably last on the list of options there if they have it their way. And then just the amount of injuries that we've seen and what we kind of relate that to. And we talked about it, the physical practices. Some of it's just the way football goes a little bit. You're seeing, injuries all around training camps right now. Every day it's just new update on who got banged up. So now for the Cowboys' sake, it is a little bit more in the first few days of camp than it has been in terms of, like, the Mike McCarthy era. But I'm with you. The physicality of practice is huge. Jimmy Johnson had talked about that a ton when you're talking about building a culture and building a team the way you want it. It's being physical, and it's working as hard as possible in practice. And that's exactly what this team needs to do. So I love what Schottenheimer's doing. I love the energy that's out at practice and just the pace of practice. And they're doing a ton of 11-on-11 work. I think that's something that is going to end up paying off. The injuries are just a bit of a bummer, but Walchuk, I think that pretty much does it for the mailbag today, brother.
All right. Appreciate the Dean Julia mailbag. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day, whether you're working out, you're eating, whatever it might be. We love that you tune in to Love of the Star. Make sure you listen to the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central Time on Odyssey. Of course, Broadus with his Crown Global Media as well. And his podcast with Vach. And we'll have a new episode coming out Friday morning. We'll record as we get some more practices as well. Thank you so much, Eric, of course, to Brian Payton for producing. I'm Zach Wolchuk. Until next time on Love of the Star, hugs and hand pounds, everybody.